Okay, so I have jerry-rigged my coworker's desk. Rookie, rookie, cookie, 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 cookie. Can you tell I've had my coffee today? Okay, I love this job because I'm allowed to film. There's really nothing to go on the fuck on. I'm the fuck alone here. I get to learn some really cool things. I'm getting certified. I'm really happy where I am. So I'm just gonna sit here and chat with you guys. One time I was not very happy with my job, but it was the fucking coolest thing, okay? I can't talk about this on YouTube because they are still watching my TikTok. I used to work at a metaphysical shop. Wow, surprise, surprise. Yeah, I know. Okay, all my stones and shit, and I try not to buy many stones like I've told you guys, but I did purchase a crystal recently. It hurts a little bit. It feels like about the equivalent of buying a pack of cigarettes for me. I also want to mention that out of fear of judging people's religions, and because psychic stores aren't supposed to do that, they do somewhat encourage people to go down the wrong path and the wrong rabbit hole, just out of the fact that you're not supposed to tell people how to live their own lives. But if you're accidentally and knowingly watching somebody worship and possibly become a fan of something that, sacrifices babies, then I feel like something should be said. But a lot of the owners of these shops are very, very much aware of these practices, but they don't say anything because, one, their products are being sold. If their products aren't being sold, then there's no fanatics. They need fanatics. Does that make any sense? Two, they're spiteful. Three, they're uncomfortable with the subject and they'd rather the person figure it out on their own. Unfortunately, what if that means somebody walks themselves into a Freemasonry? I've been quiet on it for so long that I did make a TikTok about it, and only those that I worked with would have figured out why I was posting that TikTok. I posted a spell that I did, an anti-white supremacy spell. It said Hex the Hermetic on it, and I picked a song that I know that they would never pick for themselves. I wanted to put a sexually explicit song because I know that they aren't like that. They're very much like light and love. Because that's what their store was based off of. I wanted them to feel uncomfortable with the explicitness of the song, and it is called FYK by Tia Corinne, and it does say F your kids in it, but she's referencing somebody who hurt her so bad in the name of children. And I posted it and it says, fuck your kids because you're hurting a bunch of other people doing what you're doing. And a lot of these people in these metaphysical shops will be like, I work hard for my kids, it's just all about the kids. It's just all about my kids. It's like, fuck your kids, because what you're encouraging hurts other people's children. Not in general. I'm talking about encouraging people to look into the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and even participate in Freemasonries can walk people into child sacrifice if you don't mentor them the right way. I also left a 5-star Google review, and I'll be truthful about it. Like, that's not really the move. You're not supposed to do that in that profession. You can also be cast out of the other local stores if they've known you've left a bad review. It does get around. These metaphysical shops, they are friends with each other. So you can go to one 20 miles away from your previous store and they still will know about you because they feel that you're going against their personal religion, and that's something that they just would never do. But you have to put your foot down when it comes to like looking into sacrificial magic. I don't care if I look ugly making a TikTok spell. I separated myself from the employees there. I would have gone about it differently, but I was so shocked and scared that these people were going to walk into children's sacrifice that I was like, I physically distanced myself from these people. I ended up being let go. It's okay. I have a bomb-ass career with me right now. They also didn't ask for their key back. But now that people are speaking out against Freemasonry, I don't think it's right that you can just blindly walk people into being fanatics, because the representation of the Freemasonry in your metaphysical shop is squeaky clean. And you won't talk about the details, the nasty, gritty details. So you are responsible for creating fanatics that don't have the full picture. And you're just going to blindly let them walk into it so that they keep buying your books on Aleister Crowley and the decks that are also produced by US game systems. Go ahead and turn your tarot deck upside down and check if it's made by US game systems. That's a very specific vendor of the most popular decks in the world. The licensed tarot deck vendors and also the people that are making crap tarot decks go through them, as well as some nice tarot decks. I'm not against tarot decks. I do practice on my own. I happen to even have the Hermetic deck, but I use it sparingly and I use it for very specific purposes, and I have a very controlled environment. They don't believe in using the magic against itself. They wouldn't suggest you do that. The reason why I made it anti-white supremacy, they hired me on near Halloween and they didn't tell me what was allowed and wasn't allowed near Halloween. And so I did practice Dia de los Muertos just because my family, like my heritage, you know, I'm a white girl, let's be real, right? Okay, but anyways, so I was celebrating. They hid all of the Dia de los Muertos book. Wicca Dia de los Muertos books do exist, and it's just a really bad look. But either way, they hid any type of book that they had on Dia de los Muertos. The first day, I put a jar of candy, tamarind. One white girl that looked like, we'll call her Jenny Humphrey, moved to Arizona from Oregon. She felt uncomfortable with 4 pieces of tamarind being placed out on the counter for customers. She said, we don't do things like that here. And she kind of like, and I said, like what? Like give out candy on Halloween? And she said, no, we don't do that here. And so I asked around. She hadn't actually been at that store the previous Halloween. So what she was doing was saying that we don't practice Mexican culture in our metaphysical store, and that's inappropriate to have Mexican candy in Phoenix, Arizona on Halloween, the day before Halloween. Come on, girl. You're studying Hermeticism, but you're scared of Mexican candy. So that is really what drove me to look into Hermeticism. When you're a child and something happens to you, if you get raped, if you get molested, there's this weird phenomenon that happens where you see yourself outside of yourself and you're really hopeless and you can't do anything about it. So you can see yourself as a third person outside of your body, and it's really a defense mechanism to stop yourself from feeling these terrible emotions that you're being put through. You compartmentalize it. That is a part of you that is fragmented and taken away from you. And that is also the part that they're preying on, that they're feeding off of, and that they're sacrificing your innocence and your blood and just your body. You guys, get real. Aleister Crowley was raised Christian and converted into Judaism. I know that the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn bastardized the Kabbalah. And then when I was working at Goodwill and receiving all of these terrible, terrible medallions with nasty things written on them, it made me want to look into it more. And I received so many more crystals from Goodwill, gaylords of them. If you're not familiar with the term, just look it up. It just means a huge gaylord full of crystals. I did have to look into the reasons why we were getting donations from metaphysical shops. People purchase crystals from metaphysical shops and immediately donate them. So I was getting like literal receipts at Goodwill from metaphysical stores, from people that donated these crystals because they didn't know how to use them, didn't want to use them. Yes, people purchase crystals from you and then they go to me because I was Goodwill at the time. And that's okay, but the fact that these people at these metaphysical stores are supplying it from these rock shows, and assuming that it's going for the greater good. Like, you can't really say that your shop is clean of ill intent. Nobody's shop is. It's capitalism, man. The Edgar Allan Poe era, it was very intriguing for people that were into allegory. It was a white thing, right? And so they worship gods such as Osiris, Ra, Anubis, Isis. We get a lot of crap medallions from old Freemasonaries and rings that people just donated because they are done with the lifestyle. That one of the worst ones was the Shriners, American based, but it's loosely based off of Arabian culture. But these people are not Arabian. And they wear fezzes. They just picked it. It has nothing to do with their culture. And they worship the Sphinx, the crest, and also they have a specific hospital in their region that it's hospitals for children. If you look into the reviews of this current standing hospital, a lot of people that weren't able to get the best health insurance were sent here as kids. I heard a lot of people having abuse stories. I looked this up because on the medallion that I got, it had like a man carrying a child, and it said that this man rescues crippled boys. These hermetics are referring to kids that cannot walk as cripples. And this was only a 1980s medallion. Do not idolize these people like Aleister Crowley. If the actual people that did the research know that he's so crooked in his ways. You might even want to look into the Lesser Key of Solomon, that they have books based off of these individuals, the founders of the Hermetic order, apart from Judaism, apart from Christianity, but derived from. These people made their own religion up, and they started doing rituals and spells and sacrifices. In fact, Aleister Crowley was not a founder of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, but he did violently fight his way into their Freemason. These are all men just fighting together about saying it's the meaning of life, it's in everything. And you know, the numbers and the symbolism, we can talk about the Thoth deck if you want. But I don't worship Kemetic religions. I don't worship Kemetic symbolism. I think it's a little insulting. I'm not Egyptian. I'm not black. You know, I can research it just so that I don't lead somebody astray. He abused the Akashic records. You can actually access your own Akashic records. You can do it on your own, or you can have an expert do it for you. And not everybody has to abuse. It's not Western, but it's a database where you can access your previous ancestors' memories. Even Dune kind of bases off of it a little bit, with Muad'Dib being able to access the feminine and the masculine, and how the Bene Gesserit mothers can access the database of the females of the women before them. Actually, he not only traveled to India as a foreigner, as a white European man, in about 1828 is when he brought it back to his French and English buddies. The Hermetic Order had a Freemasonry on Blythe Road. Yeats and Samuel Little, William Wine, and William Woodman. These are a few of their founders, all just white men, you know. I did look into it. Women were not allowed in for a very long time, and I do not believe anybody that was other than white people were allowed in. Essentially, people like Severus Snape are based off of Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley, per fanatics, is the most wicked man that's ever lived. I don't feel like I'm the most experienced person to talk about this, but what I did say is that somebody who wanted to practice with Orisha, and what I know is that you don't just practice with Orisha or work with Orisha. I couldn't tell anybody that our little oracles or decks based off of Orisha were any sort of verified method. So they came in wanting more information on the Orishas, and I said, hey, these are kind of like beginner decks and they're not very verified. Well, the people that worked at the metaphysical shop were very, very angry at me for this. And they interrupted and actually suggested that he purchase the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn deck. The clerks behind the counter would just suggest the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn deck to just about anybody. Also, wasn't it said that Queen Victoria was the biggest drug lord that there ever was? Shakespeare was there to entertain the royals. Take a look at what Shakespeare was doing in the Globe Theater. Little boys covered in white pasty makeup were doing love scenes on stage because women weren't allowed to act. All right, I'll talk about it more later. Ask questions. I wasn't very specific.